Yeah.
We are rolling, right? So wait, what are you, like 13, 14 weeks since a haircut?
Oh, 15. I think we're at 15. I think we are.
And you look this good.
That's really, thank you so much. That's so kind. Yeah, I don't know why I'm trying. I mean, I can go get a haircut. I really should.
Well, hey, CCF students, what's going on? Wes and Garrett here, back again for another edition of
The Deep Dive.
Like Titanic.
Like deep.
Yeah. So as you know, this week we're talking all about love-hate. Really, the heartbeat of this is how do we move from hate to love in all the relationships in our life.
That's right.
Whether they're people we're close to or people we don't think we're close to.
And I like that you said that distinction, because right now we're obviously in this global conversation on love and hate, but I mean, it's so easy even in these times to forget.
Monday we talked about letting love be what you're all about. Tuesday we had a Trinity practice to write a letter to somebody to fill somebody's needs. Ephesians 4:29.
Yeah.
Paul says to use language to build each other up according to need, the need of the hearer.
That's right.
Which is cool. He also talks about a cumulative effect, that other people who see that happening.
Accumulative. I love that. It just builds up.
It builds up.
Yeah.
Everybody who hears that then is encouraged by your use of language.
Words are everything. The Hebrew language only had 3,000 words in it, unlike the English, which has 8 quadrillion. But the interesting thing is they had such weight to them. And so right now there's a worship song that everyone's been singing really for the first half of this year, The Blessing.
The Blessing.
And everyone loves it, and it's so good. And it's rooted in Numbers chapter 6.
Which is your favorite version of the YouTube chorus versions? By
I was scrolling one day in COVID life in my pajamas and found the Hawaiian.
That's
Blessing.
my favorite too. So number 6.
The Blessing, that song is literally a direct quote from Numbers chapter 6. This was an instruction by God. It was not just, hey, let's be nice and say these kind words. God said, as you go as a group of people, these are the words I want you to use to bless other nations, people other than you.
Now, just a note here, since we're deep diving.
Why not?
Let's talk about hermeneutics or interpretation of this
these
passage.
Words, God, I love you.
Okay, so
yes.
This is written to a very specific group of ancient Near Eastern people, the Israelites, as they're coming out of slavery and beginning to become a new nation again.
Yes, and what he says so clearly is, tell Aaron and his sons, the priestly people, the religious group, this is how you're going to bless the Israelites. And it was part of their system that they wanted to always grow in numbers of Israelites, making non-Jewish people a part of their nation. This is how you bless them. He says, this is your blessing. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you, be gracious to you, and the Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace. These are not hostile words. These are not aggressive words. They, from the very beginning, had this idea that the source of goodness comes from our words. A source of goodness is how I align my words towards another person. Which, I mean, you said this before we started filming. How many ways has my life gone up or down because of words spoken to me? Right? We get this. Hey, we tell young people and little kids in elementary school, don't be mean. Why? Because those words that someone used to make fun of you are going to stay with you till you're 33.
Well, this is the funny thing. Our parents try to teach us that that's not the case. We try to pretend words don't matter.
Yeah.
I am rubber and you are glue. Whatever you say about something.
Yeah. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me, love.
Right. Which is not true. Because they will cripple you emotionally.
Absolutely. Right. And then you pay a counselor $150 a session. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. I think in our culture, Garrett, we use words and language so flippantly.
Yes.
Just without understanding, without care. And I even find myself just throwing words out because I'm not thinking, I'm just letting my mouth run. Where the Jewish perspective, they had so few words and such respect for language. It was even tied into the creation story, right? How does God create? with words.
Yep.
He doesn't.
God speaks, and then there was light. God
yes.
speaks. It's always rooted in everything starts with language, with words.
Right.
Yep.
It's they almost believed as if words were like the 2x4s that you build a house with, or like that they were seeds that you would plant in the ground. That they were creating something in another person's life.
That's right. There's two other passages I want us to look at. The first one is Jesus himself teaching this idea later. So he says in Luke chapter 6:45, a good man, a good person, brings out the good stored up in their heart, and an evil person brings out the evil things stored up in their heart, for the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. And Jesus is so clear to point out, what does he do? He's not just looking at your actions. He's not just saying, look at your words. He goes, remember where they came from. When you and I say things and we feel safe saying it because we only posted it on Snap, and I feel like I have this barrier between me and others, but it doesn't work that way. It never works that way. What I'm saying, what I'm putting out there is coming from inside of me. And if we could only know how poisonous some of our thoughts were, if we knew what it was doing to our insights, we'd never let it in there in the first place. Here's the one more passage I want to look at. James chapter 3, verses 3 through 5. This is so powerful because it's all imagery driven. Okay. James is Jesus's half-brother. So he was really close with Jesus, not just his disciple, but grew up with him. And he said these words, we can make a horse go wherever we want by means of a small bit in its mouth. And a small rudder makes a huge ship turn wherever the pilot chooses to go, even though the winds are strong. In the same way, the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can get a great forest on fire.
We know that, don't we?
We sure do. The littlest of words can incite you and I. I mean, we all are aware. Look at everybody's Snap story the last 3 weeks. Look at everybody's posts on Instagram the last 3 weeks. A little spark can create a fire. How many of you have been dealing with reactions of other people this week to what you posted or what you didn't post? How many of us have had reactions because now there's going to be a political season tailing this summer that we're living in, and how many of us are going to base everything off what somebody says or what somebody doesn't say?
That's true.
Yep, it creates a fire. So words matter, not just because Jesus said they matter, and not just because they may hurt you. Words matter because they say everything about who I am.
Now,
they do.
In your life, can you think of a time where something that somebody has said or didn't say shaped you?
One time, my dad and I, we had lived together as single guys for too long. My mom and him had been separated for a while. And one time we were just kind of in a heated fight, and I was being a high school kid, living my life. Wasn't really doing anything wrong, but he's different. He's in his 40s, living his life, working hard. And one day I just had ticked him off enough. He looked at me and he said, "You're worthless." And I like, what's so funny is I'm 33 and I don't like think about that every day. But like the fact that my father said that just makes me realize like there was a part of him that believed that. And I've just never been able to escape that day. Yeah. The day he said that. Now that's a negative example. I have another person in my life who one day wrote me a note, sat down with me, had a great lunch, and he was like a father figure to me. And he was a pastor to me when I needed it the most. And he wrote on a sheet of paper, he said, "You will change the world because of how much influence you have for the kingdom of God." That was like two competing truths of what I had to think about for my life. And I can let what my dad said, I can let it linger with me. I can also let what this incredible mentor, friend, caregiver in my life said to me, and I have to choose every day which one I believe.
I totally like so I so resonate with that experience. I so affirm it. My grandpa had this saying, and this is my grandpa and my grandma split up like 20 years before I was born. It was a really ugly situation, and my grandpa and my dad had a very tense relationship. And so I really didn't know my grandpa that well. I probably have 4 or 5 childhood memories. Yeah. He died when I was 17.
Okay.
So I really never knew him. But he would always say this, whether it was in a birthday card or which he would send, or like a Father's Day call, or any sort of interaction we had, which just a handful of times, maybe a couple times a year, he would say, "Wes is the best."
That's a good rhyme. I like that.
Which was great, except that it totally conflicted in my young mind how he acted.
So he didn't, his words said, you're the best. But
Yeah.
that was not affirmed in who he was.
Right. And,
towards
you know,
you.
like, I grew up wanting a relationship with him, knowing that there was mistakes he made that made that impossible. And I don't condemn my grandpa. I love him as an adult now. I look back, that saying Wes is the best was him trying to articulate that he wanted more of a relationship. But in the moment, what I heard in my head was actually, am I worth showing up for? But then there's also people in my life like another guy is like a father figure and an incredible pastor to me. When I was going through a really tough time making some big life decisions, and really I was going to be leaving him and his organization. I told him I had made my decision. I was going to leave, and he looked at me, and I was expecting like, this sucks, or this is horrible. He looked at me and he said, you are going to be so successful. And I was just blown away by that was his reaction, you know?
And I think what I'm stuck with in either of our stories, everyone has their own version of this, I'm sure. I have to choose every day which one I walk in.
Totally.
Which one I believe
100%.
in. And I don't always do it perfectly, but I don't need to linger with the hurt because I don't want people to hold me against all the negative words I've said in my life. And so I'm not going to hold my dad to those negative words because honestly, I've said some negative things about people and I don't want to be held to them. And that's where we let love be our guide.
That's right.
Right? That's the whole point of this is to say Jesus wouldn't let us be defined by our darkest moment, our worst words. So why would I do that for others? And I get to choose every day which one to believe.
Right. Because that's what Jesus is talking about when the good man and good heart, evil man and evil heart. If you allow those words that hurt you or the words that you didn't get that you always wanted to live in your heart, you will reproduce that through your words into other people. So here's our first step. I would just say take an inventory of the words that kind of like we're talking about, the words like you're worthless or am I worth showing up for, those words that you heard or didn't hear.
Write them down.
Yeah,
think about them.
Literally, like write them down. Yeah. You're probably going to have to like hear the voice that says those words.
That's good.
And then what we want you to do is trace that back to where it comes from.
That's really good.
And then here's the question. Would Jesus say this to me? Right? So write down those words or voices, evaluate where they came from, and then ask, would Jesus say this to me?
I love that. There's a thing on my iPad on my phone I keep. It's this little bookmark, and it's a list of all the things God says about me. You're the good work that God has started. You're a citizen of his kingdom. You can always find grace and mercy in time of need. You're born of God. No evil can touch you. You've been never ever can you ever be again separated from the love of God. You're free from condemnation. You're the salt and the light of the earth. You were created to do good. On and on. I have this list I just always go back to because sometimes I need help remembering what God has said of me and not what others have.
Step 2, just memorize and repeat over yourself the words that God says about you.
Fill your mind with that stuff.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Things like Ephesians 2:10 are one of those statements for me, that I am God's masterpiece, created to do good things.
I love that.
You know, like, and I say that to myself every day. I have to, or I'll slip into thinking I'm not worth showing up for. I think the third thing we can do, Garrett, is we can move from our heart out and we can evaluate our use of language.
Yeah, how often am I putting some bad jujus out there? And just be honest about it and go, I'm not just being mean when I do this. I'm literally shaping someone's life with my words.
Well, and sometimes it's totally just, it's like we're just used to it. It's a pattern, it's a habit, and we call people idiots or use words like retarded flippantly or gay flippantly, and we're just not being careful about it.
Gosh, I love that. My favorite, James chapter 1. For any of you looking to try to apply this, I try to memorize this. It's in James chapter 1. It says, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. I often, when I'm like ready to say something I shouldn't, I try to have memorized that verse so that I'm able in that moment to go, nope, be quick to listen, slow to speak.
You're running into next week's deep dive, actually.
Oh, stop it. Stop it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Which probably means it's time for us to end this episode of the deep dive. Thank you, Garrett, for being here with us.
Until next
week. So good. Guys, thank you for being here. We'll see you next week when we start week 2 of Love Hate.